girls, children of all ages. This is not the main event. This is the Summer Sidecard. Ryan Baldwin coming to you from a remote cave in the middle of nowhere, and over in Texarkana with the Wolverine hat and matching shirt. Don't pretend like I didn't see that. The one, the only Teflon Tucker Mason Shepherd.
Yeah. Hey, oh man. Okay, since you're in a cave, I have to ask, how do you have such good reception? Your picture is clearer than mine.
SpaceX, man. SpaceX, high-speed internet. Thanks, Papa Musk, for the internet from a cave.
You know, hey man, hey, I'm not gonna lie, it looks really cozy.
I think it's the signal bouncing around the cave actually like concentrates it and makes it stronger. But I'm not a scientist, so I don't.
Right. I mean, it looks pretty cozy in there, man. You got your pool and stuff. All you need is a flat screen. And speaking of flat screen,
that's over back that way. You can't see it, but it's back that way.
And I know what you're gonna watch on that flat screen too. Some football, man. Watching some football on that flat screen.
Football, and that's a great segue because mini camp started this week. The NFL is back in full force.
Yep.
And we already have our first significant injury of training camp as Tampa Bay Buccaneers center Ryan Jensen could miss months with a knee injury. And that's unfortunate, but also like in terms of why that's important is because the Cowboys will be playing the Buccaneers in week 1 and he will be out.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the Cowboys, did you get a chance to listen to Jerry Jones' State of the Team address on, I think it was Tuesday?
I didn't hear about it. I heard about it and saw some quotes. The main thing that I, really thought about Jerry in these last couple of days was, boy, he really does know how to backtrack, doesn't he? Just because, because you remember when McCarthy, when everybody like you and Alec and Sarah, was just a lot of people, wanted, McCarthy, out the door, after this last year on his contract, Jerry was on his radio show doing what he does best, and was talking about how he would love Dan Quinn to be the head coach and all this other stuff, to the point where Dan Quinn went up to McCarthy and was like, hey man, I'll go to these other teams that are offering me a job if it'll make it more comfortable for you here. And of course, McCarthy was like, no, you're too important. But now, apparently, Jerry is saying Mike McCarthy's the coach to lead us into the future, which I know made you sick to your stomach. But
look, but he's at this point, Jerry Jones is capable of talking without saying anything in a manner that I have not seen since he's up there with some of the politicians and his ability to just say words without actually speaking anything, and that's
not ironic for him.
It's really actually impressive. Because of course, like before the season, of course, he's going to say, yes, this is my guy. He also, which I thought was weird, said, and I had options. Like, why would you tell everybody that you had options and then went with Mike McCarthy? And here's the other thing. Now, if you start off the season 1-5, you know what everybody else said or will say? Well, who are those options? Because we kind of maybe need to start making some phone calls. And I thought it was interesting. There's a number of things that I thought that was interesting that some small things that I thought Jones just kind of mentioned. One of them was, he wants McCarthy. He thinks McCarthy can lead to the Super Bowl, but
he could not roll his eyes when he had to say that.
Yeah. But he said they needed to be viable in the playoffs, which makes me think that unless they make it to the NFC Championship game, I think he's out. Like, it's not going to be good enough to win a wild card game or anything like that. You have to make it to the NFC the NFC Championship game because, otherwise you've wasted 2 good years. And I mean,
and it depends on how he said it, because if he just said, "Oh, he'll get us to the Super Bowl," that's one thing. But if he said it, he's going to get us to a Super Bowl. Right? Because here's the thing about Jerry. Jerry Jones is someone who he is very direct. Unfortunately, that doesn't help us because he's got a big mouth. He's very direct with the wrong or right statements that he makes. That's why he didn't get along with Jimmy Johnson, because he basically told Jimmy Johnson, I want you to be a puppet for me. Recognize this as my team. Do what I tell you. Give me the glory. And Jimmy Johnson said, he was the Ryan Baldwin of his time. He said, no, this is my team and I have my own morals and principles, and I'm not going to be a puppet, Jerry. You can fire me. I really don't care. And he fired him. And Jimmy Johnson was like, okay, fine. I don't care. And I think that's something that Jerry Jones, he wants. And everybody's been saying that for years, but it's the truth. You know, the one, well, not just the one coach, but the main coach who told Jerry, and look, I'm not going to do things your way just because you say so. If it makes sense for the team, I'll do it. But if not, I'm the head coach. You don't know what goes on that field. I do. I don't care that you played linebacker or line tackle or whatever at Arkansas. You're an owner now. I'm the coach. Let me coach. Jerry didn't like it. And I think having someone, I'm not going to lie, I get mad at McCarthy when the Cowboys don't pick up any yardage on like their first possession. And this is what I see him do.
Yep. I mean, it's the Jason Garrett clap.
It's the Jason Garrett. Just, I'm going to stand by and watch my team do nothing clap of death. That's what it's called, the clap of death. Just because that shows, okay, the coach is not in control, because if the coach was in control, they'd be like, what are you doing, Zeke? You're fumbling the ball. You've had 8 fumbles this season. You know what? Pollard's playing. Sit down on the bench. Instead of, we'll get him next time. We'll get him next time. Instead of mojo drills, which I still think is the dumbest thing I've ever heard when it comes to football in my life. Mojo drills. Seriously.
And so the other issue with what Jerry Jones was saying during the press conference was he was referencing the 3 kind of big names that left: Amari Cooper, Lyle Collins, and Randy Gregory. And he said that, you know, they lost 3 really high profile players. He said those decisions were made more about the availability than ability, and they were made as to how you arrive at not being unavailable at times. Okay. So I have a hard time believing that Jerry Jones, the master of bringing in players with issues, all of a sudden said, you know what, you 3 guys, your availability is just not what we need them to, right? Like, Amari Cooper was unvaccinated, and of course he had the issue last year where he missed games. But he was not the only Cowboy that was not unvaccinated. Keanu Neal was the other one, and there was no blowback against him because he didn't miss games, luckily for him. And also he wasn't making Amari Cooper money, but still.
Yeah. Well, also, he also wasn't vocal in the sense of Amari Cooper was like, Dak, you're not getting me the ball. I'm not really liking it, you know?
Now, Lyle Collins.
Oh, that situation. That still makes me laugh to this day.
He missed time with his substance abuse policy, but other than that, had not missed anything, right?
Yeah.
And then Randy Gregory is Randy Gregory, but you brought him on in the first place. Like Jerry, you brought him on. And the thing that makes me most skeptical about that is it's not like you just let him go. No, you were fully prepared to offer him this big contract. Yeah. And then you tried to sneak wording in there right beforehand. And Randy Gregory was like, no, I'll go to Denver where they're going to give me that contract without trying to sneak any extra wording in. So while there may be some truth to it, I think that's them going, instead of just saying, you know what, we messed up in free agency, that's them going like, yeah, we made these decisions. And I'm like, well, they're terrible decisions. They really are, because you cannot look at last year's depth chart and this year's depth chart and tell me that we are a better team than we were last year.
No, not a chance. And I think here's the big thing. Here's the big deal to me, because this is what matters. What matters to me is the ability of the Dallas Cowboys to be able to get to a point where they're self-sufficient in the sense of they are able to, get something going on a consistent basis. The Dallas is too hot and cold. One game they're on fire, number one offense in the league. Nobody can touch them. The defense is firing on all cylinders. And then the next game they're lukewarm and they're playing okay. Dak's doing fine. The running game's okay. And then some games they're terrible. Excuse me, one side's clicking, the other side's not clicking. And usually it's the one side to click that we need. And just my thing with Dallas, and I've said this since day one of being a Cowboys fan, was just that Dallas has so many problems with inner team motivation. And I'm never going to stop saying that just because I just don't look at Dallas all the time and think they want to win. I look at Dallas and say, they're just having on pads and helmets because they perfect example. When you look at Tom Brady, you see it in his eyes, in his temper tantrums, even you see he wants to win. In Dallas, excluding Dak, in Dallas, you see guys in pads. They're there.
Well,
what are they wanting to do?
I think even Dak has issues bringing that to the field sometimes and getting players motivated, right? Like there's no world where you're putting Tom Brady and Dak Prescott in even the same remote level of leadership and drive capabilities, at least from what we've seen so far.
Well, yeah, no, you can't. Tom Brady took the Buccaneers, who didn't even make the playoffs, and won a Super Bowl with them. So,
but there's also, you've got cases like, as much as I hate him, Aaron Rodgers last year, he played with a chip on his shoulder.
That he did.
And you could tell that he was motivating the players around him to win. Like that when he ran in that touchdown against the Bears, it was like, I still own you. Like who was the last player we see do something like that? CD, where he kind of waved at the Patriots defender, and that was even just kind of like, okay, but after he got shut, like, I need that passion throughout the season and not just
certain games. I agree with you. Dallas, and I agree. No one is on a Brady level of that type of commitment except like an Aaron Rodgers or whatever. But I think it comes down to the management. You know why that Dallas won 2 Super Bowls under Jimmy Johnson? Because Jimmy Johnson had a team that was passionate, because he was passionate, and he was going to tell them the deal. He was going to be like, Mike, you need to get better. What are you doing? Emmett, whatever. He had a team that was motivated to go out there because they knew, hey, I'm not trying to deal with coach. You know what I'm saying? Dallas now has cupcakes. Another camp cupcake reference with Wade Phillips, who looks like he ate too many cupcakes. But it was just, there was that commitment to, I'm going to be the best player. And then you get the Romos in there and T.O. towards the end of his career, and just all these people who they get in there, and winning is, I'm not speaking for Terrell Owens, but I'm saying winning is not their number one priority. At least they don't seem like it. But, it made more sense when our running back was Tashard Choice or Felix Jones. But when we started moving into, DeMarco Murray, you got a Des Bryant.
DeMarco Murray had a solid career.
That's the point that I'm making, is that was excusable when we had a Tashard Choice of Felix Jones. Okay, the Dallas doesn't win, but we've got DeMarco Murray, and now we have Des Bryant, and Jason Witten's still pretty good. And then just the lack of interior motivation. But for some reason, a mojo drill is the most important thing to do. For some reason, it's important to get fined to hit each other hard in practice when you're not supposed to. But when it comes game time, you're not hitting anybody. They're running past you.
Don't forget canceling an OTA day to go to Topgolf for team building.
Yes. That really got you hot. Stuff like that, Diggs being more focused on break. Because I remember we talked about this on Sports Zone. We talked about this on the podcast. I said, I don't want him focused on breaking a record. I want him focused on winning, and breaking a record will follow that. But he was more focused on breaking a record. So
even like, the players, I'm just not sold, that the players are really that interested in it, right? Like, so Zeke Elliott is coming into the last year of guaranteed money on his contract.
Yeah.
And so somebody asked him, and this is the quote that he gave, says, I think it is a big season, but I think you can't look too far down the road. I think if I focus on every day, if I focus on having a good day of camp, if I focus on taking it week by week, I think everything will handle itself. I don't think there's really a reason to look that far down the road. I think if I handle my business every day, I think on a pretty good situation at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't want you to handle your business, Zeke. That's not what you're getting paid money to do. You're getting paid to create. You're getting paid to be one of the best running backs in the league based on your money. This isn't about handling business. This is about creating, and this is about being productive, something which has dropped every single season that you've been in the league.
Yep.
So you're right. You can't look too far down the road, but you're also, I mean, that's the kind of attitude where it's like, if I just handle my business. No, you go motivate everybody on that offense because that's what is necessary. You are with your linemen every day, making friends, building that camaraderie so that when it gets to the fourth quarter, you're playing for each other and you still have that energy from the first quarter all the way to the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
It is past time for taking care of business, right? And because here's the other deal. The Cowboys are not going to magically get better either over the next few years, because here's the problem coming up. You have both CD and cornerback.
What, Trayvon?
Yes, Trayvon Diggs. Both those guys are going to be getting big contracts coming up. You're already on the hook for Dak. You're already on the hook on the extension on D-Law. So now you have two more big contracts coming up. Oh, and by the way, shortly after that, Micah Parsons is going to get a fat one too.
Yep.
You are not going to have a whole lot of space to be paying players to get better. And like I said, I think it was after the Cowboys lost, whenever that was, and we were doing the podcast. I said this is they probably had their best team on paper and their best chance in the last 20 years to go win a Super Bowl, and they didn't do it. That's not to say that they can't do it this year, but I can't see it in this team's DNA right now in August, or not even August, that to go and get that. But we'll have to see. I'll have to remind myself, if we get off to a hot start, that we also went 6-1, 5-1, 6-1 at the start of last season.
I know you. What you're going to do is you're going to be like, I'm gonna be like, Cowboys won big, Ryan. And you're going to be like, I'm just waiting.
Yep. I'll be like, I will be like Uncle Shay Shay, because he was always like, Cowboys are going to do what the Cowboys are going to do.
Yeah.
And so I will be happy if they win, and I will be unsurprised if they lose, and I will not be hyped until the NFC Championship game, because because really,
we're in it.
But like I said, based off of last year, that's where we should be in terms of talent. And so if we don't get there, it's a disappointment of a season. Really, because the only difference between, as I think Shannon Sharp said it, the only difference between getting eliminated from the playoffs and making the wild card is one game. You played in one extra game and you lost. That's the only difference. There's no prestige. And it's actually worse because you get a much later draft pick in the first round. So that's what ends up. We picked 20 something for Tyler Smith.
Yeah.
Which Tyler Smith could be good, but is he a top 5 draft pick? No, he's not. So there's no roadmap for the Cowboys to get better right now. Especially if Zeke Elliott has a bad year degrades again, or even just maintains last year, because last year was far and away worse than his rookie year. If he degrades or maintains and Jerry re-signs him, I don't know what the Cowboys are going to do to get better. I just don't, because they've already wrapped up so much money in so few players, and they have more key players coming up that need money, that their bad decisions are going to come back to haunt them. And they are going to, their bad decisions and their mediocrity, where they end up 8-8 or 9-8 for however many years, or just miss the playoffs, or make the playoffs and lose in the first round or the wild card, where they just keep getting this 20, 19, 22 draft spot where you're not getting a franchise player.
Yeah.
That there's no roadmap for the Cowboys to get better. There's just not.
You know, I think what needs to happen, and I think it's easier said than done, is it's kind of like how you put it with Zeke in his comments. No more of this. Okay, no more meetings that are publicized. No more Jerry, which sounds ironic. No more Jerry on his radio show. No more. Go out there and win. Stop talking. I don't want to hear any more talking. And I think that's my biggest thing. I don't want to hear any more talking from Dallas. I just don't. I don't want to hear any more talking. I don't want to hear any more strategizing. I don't want to hear more of anything. I want them to go out and play, because they can talk all day. It's what they're good at, especially with Jerry. But there is no sense of, I want to win. You know why Tom Brady's really, 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 really legendary? Because he doesn't do this. And when he does, you listen, because that guy's won multiple Super Bowls. That guy's been an MVP. That guy's the greatest quarterback of all time to a lot of people. That guy can tell me to do anything, because he's that guy. Aaron Rodgers. You know why he can tell people what to do? Because he's Aaron Rodgers. Is he not everybody's favorite? Sure. Doesn't change the fact that he's won a Super Bowl. Doesn't change the fact he's been a multiple-time MVP. Doesn't change the fact that he's also one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. The reality of it is they don't do a lot of this, but when they do, people listen, because their opinion matters. Nobody, and this includes Dak, even though I like him and I know you don't particularly.
I don't
hate him all the time,
but I just I don't. So far, he has not proven his contract. Yeah, I'm not as big
you're
a fan.
Not as big
so
on
far,
him as I am.
Yeah, so far he's not proved his contract, and he's not the leader that you expect from the Dallas Cowboys quarterback.
Yeah, and the reality of it is, and this is the truth, and I just said it, but I have to reiterate: I don't want any more of this. I don't want any more lip service. I want them to go out. I want them to play. I want them to win. That's Dallas's formula. Shut up. Go out there. No more mojo drills. No more Jerry making proclamations. No more, this is our year. Stop. Go out there, play, win. That's all I want.
Yep.
All the talking, unless it's done by us, all the other talking about it is just, I don't want to hear it.
That's the thing. We get paid to talk. They get paid to play football. So let's just leave it to our respective roles there.
Right.
Let's see. Next up on the list, we have the Brittney Griner situation has developed a smidgen as what was suspected is now coming to be true. The U.S. has offered a Russian arms dealer in exchange for Brittney Griner and Paul Whelan, who has also been detained for, I think it was over 3 years in Russia. And so far, it has been relatively. There's been no further information, mostly because Russia followed up with a statement saying, usually let's keep this behind the scenes. And I think it's because they like having the American population speculating as opposed to actually, fully knowing what's going on. Because the reason the U.S. announced that they were going to offer this trade was because people would go like, okay, they're doing something. Like, that's the only reason that they would publicly announce it.
Yeah.
So then for Russia to go like, hey, don't talk about it anymore, is because they like the fact that Americans are speculating, because it puts pressure on the U.S. because that when there's no communication, it seems like the U.S. just isn't doing anything. At least that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. Here's my thing when it comes to Brittney Griner and that whole situation. Has it cooled off? Not really, but at the same time, when we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, that it was hot, man. It was white hot, and now stuff is getting settled, so it's just it's not simmering down because she's still over there. But you know what I'm saying? It's just kind of with that situation. I'm happy that what's going on is transpiring. I just think that I what I want Brittney Griner's story to be? I want it to be more of a lesson, in the sense we talked about this. As an athlete, have common sense. Really it's a person, but this is a sports show, not a sociology program. So, as an athlete, have common sense, especially when it comes down to where you're going to be if it's a foreign country. And also know, like you said about LeBron multiple times, kind of know your situation before you talk about something, just because this has been something that has divided not a lot of people, but at the same time, this wouldn't be as, oh, you got to bring her home, bring her home. Sure, you have people who say that, but you also have people who are silent. They could care less either way it goes. So I think this was kind of a lesson for really everybody, you, me, everybody watching, just because now we know we have to check our parameters, because now we know that we can eventually be made into a headline. So,
well, not even just, I mean, just not, it's not even, it's more than just the athletes too. It's any American traveling abroad.
Yeah.
If other countries see that they can get stuff out of the US by detaining people for, a crime that she did technically commit.
Yeah.
If they can push that along, then you have to be careful in other countries about what you're taking in and how you conduct yourself over there. You have to be even more careful than you do over here. So I think it's a lesson to all American citizens, no matter what country you're going, just be 100% sure that whenever you're in another country, you are abiding by their laws.
Yeah. Also when it just comes to this, I think Ryan, and I think the biggest thing for the both of us when looking at these is we kind of got to see, I would say, somewhat of the problems in professional sports, in my opinion, because I want you to tell me legitimately, we saw the members of the WNBA rally for her, right?
Mm-hmm.
What male athletes in the top sports did you see do anything?
Well, obviously LeBron.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't really pay attention a whole lot to who was saying what, apart from what popped up on ESPN.
Of course.
And so, I saw LeBron, but I understand that there's quite a few people that were saying, I think LeBron made T-shirts or saying that said "We are BG" or something like that. That I saw a number of people wearing. So I assume more did, but obviously LeBron's was the biggest because of the way he said it. And that's the other thing too, right? It's what they're saying it's what they're saying extra, right? Because LeBron, if he had just said "We stand with Brittney Griner," not a headline.
Yeah.
The fact that he
That's
added
true.
on the "Why would she even want to come back?" That's the news. So everybody, there's probably a bunch of male athletes on Twitter that said "We stand with Brittney Griner," but that's it. And so therefore, it's not news, right?
That's true. And you have to think about it. It is media, and so whatever matters at that time. Whatever doesn't, in the grand scheme of things, will get glossed over. So I think it's just one of those things where it's like it's priority.
Yeah. So not sure what timeline it's going to be. I've read a couple of different things that say that there is no timeline for Griner's release until the trial is done and sentencing is done. So that can still be a ways away. Who knows? It all depends on what the court proceedings are in Russia, and I am definitely not an expert on that. So I am not going to speculate.
I'm not going to give you any speculation on that, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
I have no idea whatsoever.
No idea.
Sweet.
And now on to number 3. Vince McMahon has officially retired as the CEO and chairman of the WWE. Mason, this is your wheelhouse. Obviously,
yes,
it was kind of expected based on current allegations going on surrounding him. But
well, I will say this: if you know Vince, like I know Vince from a fan's perspective and watch, technically this kind of wasn't expected. Not in the sense just because it wasn't just the allegations, because he could have overcome that, but it's the fact that people are finding out way more than just because remember in the beginning, it's $3 million. Excuse me, it's $3 million, and that's still a pretty big deal. I don't mean to say like, the $3 million for misconduct, it's not a big deal. It was first it was just 3 million, and then people found out, nope, it's in the double digits, and other women who were actually active members on the roster. And then it's not just 12 million, it's 14 million now. So as the number went up, and then it starts to go into, this is actually company money, not just money out of his own pocket, then yeah, he had no choice, because if he stayed there and this came out, it would look bad. So he tried to, one thing about WWE, if it ever comes to bad publicity, they're always going to try to get ahead of everything. And I think that Vince made the right decision. I can't speak for his personal life and what he's going to do with that. Some people think he's never really going to be gone from the company. I choose to keep my fingers crossed and believe he will, just because I need the product to change, and the product to not really change in the sense of be different, but be better than it can be. And with Triple H, Paul Levesque running head of creative and vice president of talent relations, and with Stephanie McMahon and Nick Khan being co-chairwoman and chair people, I think that the product, especially after tomorrow's pay-per-view SummerSlam, we're going to see a change. And I think the most important thing for Vince, and really just wrestling in general, the tide has shifted. And I think one thing I can say about professional wrestling, especially seeing it now, is that because of someone like Vince McMahon and just the lengths he's gone to make this mainstream and global, even though he doesn't want wrestling to be treated like a sport, so a lot of other people don't treat it like a sport, ESPN still covers it. And I think that's a very big deal, because does that automatically mean that everybody should think it's a sport because ESPN covers it? No, but at the same time, you can't deny what professional wrestling is and what Vince McMahon has done for it, and what he's done to put it in the mainstream. Because for every person who's not interested in wrestling, there's at least 3 others that are. And I think it's one of those things where everyone, because a lot of people everyone can say that they've at least seen one wrestling match. They've at least grown up with one wrestling match on their television, WWE or otherwise, but usually WWE. And I think, we have to give Vince that much credit for that. Like I said, I'm speaking strictly on professional terms here. I am not saying anything about his personal life. But I am saying that as a professional, CEO, and the stuff that he's done for the sport, as I will always refer to it as, of pro wrestling, he's done a lot to detract from it. Obviously, look at what he has to do because of his actions, but he's done a lot to add to it as well. You and I would not be talking about professional wrestling if it wasn't for someone like Vince McMahon. And that's a truth that people, I'm glad I see people not really negating that, just because we wouldn't. ESPN would not be covering it, because ESPN was covering the Dallas Sportatorium and covering the AWA and stuff like that, but they weren't going to do that forever. In fact, a lot of people at ESPN, especially when you were growing up and when I was, they didn't like wrestling, but it became so mainstream, they had no choice but to talk about it. Now they have people that their sole job at ESPN is to cover wrestling. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, this affects really a lot of the sport of professional wrestling, but you could really say professional sports, because I don't think we're ever going to see another person like Vince McMahon. I think Jerry Jones, ironically enough, is the closest to Vince, in the sense of he is all about, the presentation of things, and he wants things exactly the way he wants them. And he has a great ability to draw money for himself and become a billionaire and be successful. And he also has people aggravated at the sight of him and just can't wait to, they don't have to no longer stand him being in charge of them. And I think for Vince McMahon, doing what he's done for the sport of pro wrestling, I think it's been good. I think it's been bad. I think it's been pretty. I think it's been ugly. I think it's been beautiful. I think it's been atrocious. It's a lot of these emotions because you can't just put him in one way on a professional level. And I think that the fact that we're talking about this on the show, the fact that ESPN is covering it, the fact that WWE will continue to grow, evolve, and change, I think that just speaks to what Vince McMahon has done for it. So,
a man with a complicated legacy for sure.
But it's Vince McMahon. I don't think he would have it any other way, just because, like I said, when you're a wrestling fan, Vince, and even though this is getting into infidelity, Vince and Linda haven't been close in years. She stays all the way in Florida while he stays in Connecticut. It's not like, oh, they were this close, husband and wife. No. So I'm not baby facing his infidelity whatsoever, or his misconduct that has led to the heartache and the harassment and just the emotional trauma and physical trauma of these innocent women. But at the end of the day, Vince made the right decision to step down, and he's still in trouble because this could turn criminal. It's civil now, but it could turn criminal. So we'll see, but I think that while he did, and I think that's the perfect way to put it. And I think, we haven't seen someone like this. This isn't really sports related, but we haven't seen someone like this since, like a Michael Jackson or if you want to go sport wise, I guess you could kind of say LeBron, but not to that big of an extent. Kobe, that's a good one. Kobe, God rest his soul. A complicated legacy. Someone who great at what they did, respected by many, but personally, well, that's another story.
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent segue into our next topic there, some basketball, because there's some basketball drama that's gone down over the past couple of weeks. And I say drama, I mean, it's free agency. So not anything like the allegations facing McMahon, but the 76ers finally made official their deal with James Harden. So he is sticking around on a 2-year, $68.6 million basis.
Which you and I both thought was going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I didn't think they were ever going to sign a long-term deal with Harden, but 2 years, keep him around, because I think honestly, what's the let me take a look at Joel Embiid's contract. Joel signed a 5-year, $147 million. So he's coming up kind of on the end of his contract after next year. So I think the 76ers are kind of looking at, okay, this is our window is pretty rapidly closing. And so we either need to figure out whether this is a blow up and do over, or if we're getting the band back together for a few more years, because Joel Embiid's contract ends at the end of the upcoming season. So at the end of the 2023 season. So I think the 2-year deal just kind of gives them this year and the season to kind of figure out what they're going to go, or the future of the franchise after this. And then speaking of odd contracts, let's just jump over to this before we get back into the NBA. So Zion Williamson, we talked about his 5-year, $193 million max contract. And then he's got a weight clause in his contract where he needs to be below 295 pounds, and his body fat percentage will also be monitored. And if he's overweight, it's just the amount of guaranteed money in his contract. It's not like his contract is voided, but the amount of guaranteed money goes down.
Here's the thing, and we can tie in Kyler Murray in this too, because I definitely wanted to consider that when we're talking about these contracts and what it means. First with Zion, you and I talked, and I said verbatim, I said they trust his ability to play. They do not trust his ability to stay in shape. They signed him because of his ability to play, but they do not trust him in his ability to stay in shape. So I'm not surprised that they did that. And I know he can't be either, because he had a broken foot And he could have come back from that. Anybody could have, especially in an 82-game season. But what happened? He was eating, wasn't exercising, gaining weight, putting more weight on that bad foot, and never could get healthy, missed an entire year with an injury that you do not miss an entire year for.
Yeah.
And with Zion, there's a lack of motivation, which seems to be the word floating around these days for all athletes in their contracts, I guess you could say, just because when you're a professional athlete, it is your job to look the part. Now, no one's saying that he has to get arms like Dwight Howard and, a physique like LeBron, but at the same time, dude, take care of yourself. You're paid multi-million. Ryan and I would have a boxing match to see who would get that amount of money. I think I know who would win, but at the same time,
definitely you. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Not a fighter, totally. But no, just you know what I'm saying. Just you have to look the part. You have to be proactive, and keyword active, Zion. But he wasn't. It was the exact opposite. He was just someone who, I'm getting paid. I don't really care. I'm gonna eat. I'm in New Orleans, whatever. And it was just like, that's so unprofessional. So I don't blame the Pelicans for putting that in there because they needed to. Because again, they trust his ability, but it's hard to give someone that money and say, I trust them to get in shape. So of course they went back and were like, we need to put this weight clause in. They'd be stupid not to. And speaking of stupid, with Arizona,
well, did you see that they've now taken out the clause again?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. So
I'm not saying.
So real quick,
I'm not saying. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so people that are watching, in case they didn't know, Arizona put a clause in Kyler Murray's new max contract where he is mandated 4 hours of non-team activity film study. So that 4 hours isn't included in whatever they do during team activities, during regular practice hours. This was 4 extra hours mandated by the team that Kyler Murray must be watching film. And it specifically stated there's no phone, no video games, no television on in the background. It's an extra 4 hours on his time of film study. And then after this came out and there was all kinds of, not really backlash, I guess, it just makes Kyler look, like you said, completely unmotivated. The Cardinals took that out, I believe, today. So continue on your point. I just want to make sure people knew what we were talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, they took it out the day before yesterday.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. As far as Kyler goes and that, this is the part that's confusing. Because he got up there and he said, it's funny how you guys think I don't watch film. And he was speaking more to the media, not really his team, but he was kind of doing both. My thing is, if they have to put it, and he said he watches film by himself too, not just team activity. So my question is, why did they put that in there if he legitimately does do film study by himself, like he said he does? Because.
Well, it's easy I could say I'm doing, film study by watching highlights of a game. I can call it film study, but that's not actually what it is, right? So he can say, of course I do film study, but that might not, there's probably a difference, but there must have been a difference between what he was doing and what other quarterbacks do, or, quarterbacks at the highest level do. Because otherwise, like you said, there's no reason for them to put that in there.
Yeah. Obviously the reason they took it out was because Kyler Murray felt disrespected, and he got to say that the day after they took it out. But at the same time, I'm sure he told them and was like, look, if this is how you guys are going to treat me after these years are up, I'm out. I'm gone.
Well, he signed the contract though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He looked at it and signed it. He knew it was in there, and he could have gone and said, he could have just said, no, I ain't signing it.
Well, like my dad said, that's more on his agent than him, because the agent is the one who's really supposed to spot that stuff in the first place.
I have a hard time believing that he didn't spot it. If his agent did not spot that and relay him, he needs a new agent.
Maybe he does. Maybe his agent is that bad. But that's the confusing thing. Zion, we know why it's in there, and it's fair. No one can say that that's unfair whatsoever. But for Kyler Murray, this creates a lot of controversy for Arizona, just in the sense of what really happened. Why'd you take it out? Why'd you take it out of his contract? Because you took it out. It'd be easier to denote, okay, they took it out because he was upset and he made it known. They took it out before he said anything to the public about it. So it makes you wonder what's really going on with the Cardinals.
I think they put it in, and then the details got leaked on the contractor, because I think at some point they're made available for people to look at. And so people found out, and that's when it was reported. And the speculation led to, the negativity coming down on Kyler. So I'm sure Kyler's getting all kinds of trash talk and hate on various social media about having that in there. And so they probably just were like, you know what? It's not going to help him play any better if he's constant. Like, think about the memes that come across for the entire season. Every single time there's an interception, or he makes a bad play, or makes a misread, and it's every single time it's like, well, here's where that 4 hours of film study would have come in handy every time. And just like having that hanging over, like, I know,
but it's still going to hang over his head. It's out there now, so it's not, those memes are not going to not go away. Our buddy Alec will be making those memes. Trust me.
Oh, for sure.
They're not going away.
He is a football meme king, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Love you, Alec Rap. But I think that's also, like you said, that's also what got him upset, is because he knows, well, thanks guys, now I'm under a microscope, because now people are going to be watching everything I do. And if I mess up, film study, they're just going to keep throwing that in my face as if I don't watch any anyway.
And I totally get that. But again, either he or his agent or both messed up by signing the contract. Because if they hadn't signed it, it wouldn't have necessarily gone public about why he didn't sign it, right? He could just, like, how many times have we just heard teams have not agreed to a deal yet, or a team and a player have not agreed to a deal? Most of the time, it's not until, the deal is signed that details like that come out. So the fact that he signed it was what led to it coming out that he needed this clause put in there. So either he or his agent severely messed up. And so now, as you mentioned, I think you're right. It's one of those things where no matter, every single negative thing he does for the rest of the season is going to be film study. Oh, film study. Oh, well, he should have been studying film 4 hours, any kind of variation of that.
Yeah. And, that's it's kind of like the Prescott effect with Romo when that thing was happening. That creates a tough environment for especially a quarterback to work under. And, maybe Kyler is better than we're giving him credit for, in that he'll be able to block it out. He'll ignore it. But when you're a meme, especially in a sport like football, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
Because you can't get away from that. Especially if you mess up, you can't get away from that. You will be known as the guy who does not watch film. And there's nothing you can just genuinely do about that, because people are going to be on you. And I think the most important thing for me, as it pertains to just athletes in general these days, like we talked about, so I'm not going to relitigate all of it, but I just think there is a big difference between the athletes of now and yesteryears, because that motivation, it's questioned to a point where a mysterious clause of 4 independent hours of film study is in someone's contract. You didn't have to tell people that back then, but you're having to bring that up now, even if it gets taken away. That's still a big deal. So, or going back to Zion, losing weight to be able to perform, or to at least heal from your injury properly. That's big.
Yep.
You wouldn't have to tell any guys from back then that. And I just think a lot of athletes of today, and I'm going to say this, and I mean what I say, a lot of athletes of today, in my opinion, they care about this and their brand. The sport is cool. I'm not saying they don't love it, but they don't love it because they love being a champion. They love it because what being a famous athlete brings them. And if being a champion adds to that, then they love being a champion. But if they can be a champion without that, oh, well, that was a problem with Dwight Howard, making hundreds and millions of dollars because he was one of the best defensive big men, because look at that size and frame. But David Robinson came out and said his basketball IQ is really, really low. And Kobe again, God rest his soul, got mad playing with Dwight. He's like, dude, you don't take this seriously. I'm a champion. I want to win. You're out here lollygagging around. You're not doing anything. And then finally, Dwight Howard became a champion because LeBron was the same way. Just LeBron, I guarantee, put it in a more nicer way than Kobe did. Because Kobe just came out and said, I don't like playing with this guy. He doesn't like to win. You know, it's just stuff like that where, yeah, I'm the Superman, Dwight Howard. It's my brand. I don't really take basketball seriously. I just do it because I know that's how I generate my income. You know, I think it's a dying breed of having people who want to be the best versus people who just want to be famous. And again, you know what the best example of that is? The Ball Boys. I'm not saying that Lonzo and LaMelo. I'm not saying those guys are. I'm not saying that those guys aren't, talented, but at the same time, before we even saw them play on a professional level, I'm not talking about Lonzo in college. Before we saw them play on a professional level, what was their dad doing? He's better than LeBron. He's better than Kobe. He'd cross up Jordan. Big baller brand. Why? Because they wanted that brand. They wanted the fame. They wanted that money. Lonzo, if he ever became a champion, his dad would never shut up.
To be fair, I think that's more on their dad than them. Because what are they going to do? Are they going to say, shut up, dad, in front of everybody? Probably not.
No. 100%. But that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that's where that mentality kind of shows up. You know what I'm saying? It's just when somebody's dad is more focused on a brand, how are the players supposed to react? You know what I'm saying? OBJ, he's got a great brand. Does he have good stats? Is he injury prone? Yeah. But is he a champion that adds to his brand? Yeah. So I think athletes of today have really just changed. I'm not trying to knock them, but there are some things that are perturbing to me. Like, do you guys really want to go out and win? You don't act like it. You don't act like you want to win. You act like you just want to make money. That's just me. That's just how I feel about it.
I think you have hit the nail on the head. And as we said a few weeks ago, I think we boiled it down to athletes today seem like personalities that play sports as opposed to professional athletes of decades prior.
So. Yeah. Because what was the main thing that people always say about Jordan? He was competitive on and off the floor.
Yep.
He wanted to win everything. You couldn't take a win from him if you wanted to, or you could try to, Now you have people who are like, yeah, I'll go out there and make some shots so I can get on Sports Center, and then I'll get a brand deal, and then I'll be famous, and then I'll have a brand, and then I'll make money, and then I'll get a shoe deal, and then I'll have a model girlfriend, whatever. It's just people don't want to win for the sake of winning.
Yep.
That's just becoming more prevalent to me, just because because it's easier to be focused on a brand. Why? Because all you have to do is be the best player on the team. And if your team sucks, but you're good, I can make money because I'm a brand player. Not, you know what? I want to go somewhere else and win. I want to be a champion. I want to be number one. And you know what? I'm not even just going to blame the players. I think the media has also helped cultivate that kind of culture. Because think about it. Why would the media get so mad at LeBron James for being like, I'm taking my talent to South Beach? Because he wants to win? I thought all athletes wanted to win. Why is that a bad thing? Why is he viewed as the traitor of the month because he left a team that wasn't helping him and wasn't doing anything, and he went to Miami to win? Now, again, yes, he went to go play with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I understand how that looked.
People hated it because of the way in which he did it too, right?
Well, yeah, the press conference.
Do you need a 30-minute special on ESPN to do a 2-minute announcement? No. You could have done a 2-minute announcement and been fine, but no, you need a 30-minute special event on ESPN. So I think that was a lot of the
deal I think that was a lot of it too. But at the same time, but that translated into Kevin Durant now being called the cupcake because he wanted to leave Oklahoma City to go to Golden State. Now, again, yes, there were big money players on that team and a team that was already established, but he wanted to win. At least he wanted to win. Didn't say, yeah, I'll stay in OKC where I could be the only star, because at least I'll get to be the only star. And if I win, then that's a byproduct.
Well, that about wraps it up. That was good. I like your. I agree with all your takes there on that. I think we kind of talked it to death a couple weeks ago when we were talking about our.
Yeah, because I got hot a couple weeks ago.
But I agree with all your points there, and that'll wrap it up for the main event summer sidecard. We will see y'all next week with hopefully some more sports news as we get closer and closer to football season. But until next time.